Hello. Let me get that sorted out. How are you? Who's going to be the first to share their face with me? Do, 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 do. Oh, there we go. Is that Zoom staff booking? Zoom staff booking. I love names. Give me your names. Come on. Share with me.
Sorry, Marie. I don't know where that came from.
That's John.
Zoom staff booking. I am John Carrigan.
That's it, John. I know. I just wondered if other people knew. Hello, Tasman. Hello, Sonia.
Hi, Marie.
Waiting for a couple of other people, a few other people to jump in, so we'll give them a moment.
I'll be back soon.
I'll get your cuppa. Yeah, get my cuppa while you're at it, Sonia. I left mine in the kitchen.
I've done my work on Zoom for the day.
Yay, that's good. Just make sure there's nobody waiting in that waiting room. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I thought that I let them in. Oh, here they come. I have to just disable that waiting room. Hello, hello. Sorry, I had to be stuck in that waiting room there. I needed to disable the waiting room for you all to be able to automatically join. So make sure I'm doing that now. Welcome. Where's that little? There it is. There it is. That's all good. Okay, great. How is it where you are? You don't have to really tell me. That's almost a rhetorical question. You can just give me some sort of reaction to tell me what it's like. You can give me one of those, or you can give me, here's one of my favourite reactions. That one, you can give me that one. Or you can give me, what about this one? This comes in handy in a lot of places, I find, the red boot. Just the red boot. I'm red booting all these restrictions out of here for you. My superpower, my red boot. Lovely to see you, Felicity. And I know it's creeping up your way too, so I hope all your community members are going to be safe out there in the northwest in Moree and surrounding places like Walgett, where there's large Aboriginal communities, Collie and Bawarrina and places like that. So I hope you're all staying safe. G'day, Margie. And g'day, Kay. Kay just tried to organise a meeting with me.
I didn't get an invite to this meeting.
I'm going on the wire. I've got to get on.
But was there an invite went out?
Yep.
I didn't get one.
Oh, it's so efficient. It probably went out, save the place, save the date sort of invitation.
I couldn't find anything for today. So
2 days ago.
Never mind. I'm glad I emailed at the time.
Sorry about that. Yes, there has been one deviation from the every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're every 4 weeks. If
you're definitely on the list, Kay. It went.
I had it in my diary.
Probably check your spam folder.
Nothing in there. I don't know. I had it in my diary and thought, oh, I haven't got an invite. Can't be on. So.
Mama.
Did the calendar not get up? You were going to put up a calendar? Or?
Yeah. No, I haven't been able to work it out yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm having a problem with the plugin, so that's why I sent out save the dates.
Cool. Okay.
There you go. That's the perfect occasion for the red boot.
I missed the red boot. What's the red boot?
Oh, it's just a reaction that I use when I just feel like getting my walking boots on, you know. These boots, these red boots. Oh, there's lots of reactions in there, but I'm enjoying using all the different ones because I'm about diversity, even diversity of reactions. There we go. Today, folks, we are unpacking Standard C 4.3, which is the diversity and inclusion standard, just for a bit of fun, and mostly because there have been some changes to this standard between the previous version and the new version of the standard. So I just thought that we would check in and have a look at the evidence together and encourage you to really tell this story in a fabulous way, because diversity looks different, doesn't it, to everybody? And what we're doing and where we get opportunities to share good practice as well, I think it's helpful. So thank you all very much for taking the time to join us. I'm recording this for anyone who's watching at a later date from home or lockdown or wherever you happen to be. Thanks for doing that too. Okie dokie, I have got lots of people joining, and you know what, we're lucky with this technology because we're joining from all different places. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians, the First Nations people of the land that I'm on today. I am in beautiful, drizzly Port Macquarie, which is the country of the Biripi people. I would like to acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging, and their deep connections to the land and waters of this place. I would like you to share, as always, in the chat, the name of the traditional custodians of the lands on which you're joining from, and you can put your organisation in, or you can put your suburb or town in. I think organisation is really helpful for everyone to know who they're talking with. So off you go in the chat. Let me know who you are and where you come from. We've got some people. We've got Margie Andrews from Bernardo's. Who else is here? Who else is here? Jim, you're joining us from Sydney from Glebe House, aren't you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Where else are we coming from today?
Jim, you're around the corner from me. I'm just in Stanmore.
There we are. Neighbours. Kay and Jim are neighbours. They're working that out. Darawal country, beautiful. Women's community shelters. Lovely to have you here, Tasman. Oh, I bet I'm not the first person to do that, am I? Diversify your name for you. Just
No,
like that.
I used to work with a Tas name as well, and it just was just too much for people.
Tasman. Oh.
Yeah.
Princess Tasman, I'll call you. All right, there we are. All over the place. Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge that I've got my beautiful colleague Lisa here with us today. She's an amazing assessor. I'm so lucky to have her on the team. And if you've got her as your assessor, you're very lucky to have her coming your way. And we've got Moree Family Support in Camillora country. Lovely that you're joining us, Felicity. All right, let's get on. Let's get on. The way that I would like to roll today is I would like to share with you the definitions that relate to Standard 4.3 diversity inclusion that have been written by Service Excellence. All right, so there are many, of course, there are many definitions for the terms that are expressed in those indicators in that standard, but I think it's really helpful that we have got their interpretation of it. Certainly helpful for us as assessors, but also helpful for you when you're trying to interpret the evidence guide. So I'd like to have a look at some definitions so that if you've got different definitions, you can come maybe a little bit closer to what Service Excellence people are thinking. I would also like them to go through the 4 requirements under that standard and have a look at the evidence, so the documents and the other things that you could be showing, because I think their list in the evidence guide is quite comprehensive and helpful. So we'll do that. And then, I have got a ton of resources for you that I've been collecting over the years. A couple of fun facts. I don't know if you know this, but Highwire is contracted to deliver diversity training for Safe Work New South Wales. Their inspectorate, so all of the inspectors that get around and come out to the workplaces, I deliver their diversity training, which I love. I really love it. So I get to do that. And did you know that about 70% of the work that Highwire does, we get to do with Aboriginal communities, Aboriginal organisations and individuals. So we're very proud of that. We get invited back, which is awesome. So we're making friends. And so we are proud of our ability to maybe, effectively engage and work in culturally respectful ways. So we can share that with you. And I have been invited as a Highwire team member to undertake diversity inclusion audits for a couple of organisations as well over the last couple of years. So I'm sharing those tools with you. Lots of tools and resources coming your way that will hopefully be helpful. So that's how we go. That's how we go. There's Corinne, also joining us from Community resources. Oh, I was just hearing about something to do with Foster tongue curry and the creeping COVID. I hope you're okay, Corinne, and your people are okay. Okay, let me get my trusty PowerPoint up here for you, just as a bit of a guide to how we might go through this. Oh yeah, that's all right. Okay, the diversity and inclusion standard. The intent of this standard. Now, this is if you're looking at your workbook or you're looking at your evidence guide, you will see that underneath the title of the standard, there's this little statement, which is the intent of the standard, how it should be understood, how it should be read. So valuing culture, diversity and inclusion in all activities, including in the pursuit of individual outcomes. So that's, with people, with your clients, and in organisational improvement. So all the ways that you're developing and all the ways that you're connecting with people, that we're valuing cultural diversity, inclusion in all of those. The outcome, this is what it says in the book, but I don't know, it doesn't really grab me, this outcome, but I didn't write it. But the outcome, the intention, the impact that this standard could have is that stakeholders are inclusive and included. Doesn't tell me much, that one. There are 4 requirements under this standard. Sometimes we call these indicators. So these would be indicators of success. So if you were doing these 4 things, you would definitely be achieving the intent of this standard, right? If not the outcome. All righty, the first requirement is that you be embracing all forms of diversity. Now that is open to interpretation, isn't it? So let's interpret it. In the chat, why don't we start typing all the forms of diversity we can think of, right? So bonus points for coming up with something original, right? So let's go. What could we list as all the forms of diversity? I will read them out because sometimes on the recording people can't see the chat. So off we go. What do you think they mean when they say all forms of diversity? You can certainly talk to me if you prefer not to be using your chat. Like if you're kicking back with your cuppa and you can't reach your chat. There we go. We've got race and ethnicity. We've got gender diversity, different abilities. We've got language diversity, neurodiversity. I love that one. Would that mean the way we think? Is that where you're coming from with neurodiversity? I like that. We've got cultural diversity, sexual diversity, excellent. Age diversity, yes. So we happen to have good age diversity in our Zoom room today, don't we, just from looking around? What else have we got? What else can you think of? Think about your team. What sort of differences do you see across your team? Religious diversity, that's great. So diversity of beliefs, religious and spiritual diversity, I would think too. Political diversity, that's a good one. That's a good one. And what's probably in a team, what sort of diversity could be most helpful for you if you were thinking about ways to improve your systems and processes? What sort of diversity could be most helpful for you then, do you think? If you were having a bit of a brainstorm about how to improve X, what sort of diversity would you want? Exactly, diversity of experience. That's fantastic, John. Thank you. Acceptance of differences. Yes, please. Yes, that's great. All right, so there we go. So that's embracing all forms of diversity. Embracing it. So embracing, whatever that means to you, if you're embracing something, yeah, maybe it's more than just accepting it. It's really embracing it. So it might be promoting it, acknowledging it, celebrating it, finding ways to utilise those different perspectives and things like that. We got it. We've nailed it. That's fantastic. Thanks for that contribution. The second indicator, the second requirement, a system is in place for staff and volunteers to become culturally capable. This is quite explicit when we have a look at the evidence. It's going to say things like everyone receives cultural awareness training. All right, so that might look like different things in your organisation, but it's pretty much something we're looking for, to see that 100% of the people are given that opportunity for learning cultural awareness, you know. The third one is a culturally safe and inclusive environment exists across the organisation and its services. I find this a really interesting one, because who determines whether it's culturally safe and inclusive? Probably not the assessor. It's something that people feel, isn't it? Like, it's a self-orientation, that one, isn't it? It's really, it's in the experience of the person who's coming into the organisation or who's working in the organisation, isn't it? What cultural safety means for them. Yeah, so that's why it's important for us to have a look at some of these definitions in a moment.
Marie,
Yes, yes.
Would the assessor test that with staff and clients?
Yes, especially with clients. So it's a question that we would have, you know, talking with clients about how is your culture respected and promoted here, you know, so those sorts of things.
Yeah.
How do you get to express your culture here? Those sorts of things. We would certainly ask a question around diversity of the staff at the staff interview. And if we're interviewing managers, we would ask them how they ensure that it's a safe and inclusive environment for people. So what sorts of things have they implemented to kind of guide that or model that, or, you know, state a commitment to that. So yes, we would look at, in practice, who are they including, you know? So we look at things like people with a lived experience, you know, how are people with a lived experience invited to participate in decision making and planning, you know, so that kind of diversity of experience. You know, what sort of opportunities are there for people from different groups in the community? So if we become aware of the profile of a particular community, then we might expect that there'd be some representation of the various groups, you know, in the organisation somehow. It might be in sort of a co-design process, or it might be in surveys, or, you know, profiling, but yeah, those sorts of things. It's not, I mean, that's a very sort of that's a grey one to assess. It's not clear cut, is it? So some of the indicators will say has a documented process for X. This one says it's a culturally safe and inclusive environment. Well, we're going to judge that across, you know, our interviews, your documents, and conversations with clients and observations. There's lots of things that we will see as we are walking around, having a look at the environment and how welcoming and safe and inclusive that environment appears to be for different groups. So we have that lens on. Lisa, you can add anything. We're going to get down into the nitty-gritty in a moment, but thank you very much for that question. The organisation, oh, I like this one. This is one where there's often gaps. All right, so this is one to keep an eye on. The organisation measures its performance regarding the support for and promotion of diversity, inclusion, cultural safety and capability. So you have some way of monitoring how well you're doing. Okay, so it doesn't have to be targets or anything like that. I mean, you might have set some diversity targets in your organisation through workforce or, you know, participation, your client participation, but this is whether you have some way of knowing whether you're doing this well, or we're doing this well. Okay, so improvement in this area should have a measure. Right, questions can, as you know, can come at any time. There's something in the chat that I need to just take a look at. Oh, Sonia's having trouble. I'm sorry about that, Sonia. Strange noises. Oh, sounds frightening, but thanks for letting me know. Good luck with that. Okie dokie. Let's have a look at some of these definitions, shall we? Valuing diversity is a definition that, and where we find these definitions, if you're interested in looking them up yourself, is at the end of the evidence guide and the end of the workbook. That's where we find the definitions for the terms that are used within the framework. So valuing diversity, you can read this, the integration of broad range of backgrounds and ideas into organisational plans and services, right? So when you're planning, you're inviting a range of perspectives. And when you are designing services, you know, when you're thinking about the services that will be delivered to the clients and community, that you're integrating a broad range of background and ideas. And I want to just focus in on that ideas bit for a moment. I recently had a look at a really good TED talk about diversity of thought, and I'm sharing the link there with you. It's by a woman called Juliet Burke, an Australian woman who works at Deloitte, and she's a people and culture sort of person there, or she's responsible for something like cultural change. She's got a great title, as you can imagine. And it's very interesting because it talks about the different ways that people think and how that leads to certain types of decisions being made, and maybe the same types of decisions being made over and over. I think you'll really enjoy the talk. So I've included the link there for you if you're interested in promoting diversity of thought in your organisation. If you value that type of diversity. Cultural capability. Now, capability and cultural competency and cultural awareness, they all get mixed up a bit, don't they? But the way that I see capability is the set of skills and knowledge, behaviours and attitudes. So I quite agree with this definition. It's that set of skills, knowledge, behaviours and attitudes, we call that the capabilities, that are required to work effectively, respectfully, responsibly. Now, this is where it gets into, from all forms of diversity, the definitions in the Service Excellence Framework now come around to Aboriginal people. Right, so what I'm seeing is a focus through the diversity inclusion standard on our work with Aboriginal people. Okay, so just to be aware of that, we will be looking specifically for evidence of your engagement with Aboriginal groups. Okay, so this is about working effectively with Aboriginal people and their families. That's culturally appropriate. And again, cultural appropriateness is often determined by the receiver of the service, by the community. All right, so knowing what's... Hello, is that someone who wants to talk to me? No, it's just Tony. That's all right. So that's the set of skills, if you like. Our capability is a set of skills. A little bit different from cultural awareness. So cultural awareness would be seen as a basic understanding of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, people and cultural issues. Now, this is interesting. It has a foundation of information about Aboriginal people, their history and impact of colonisation, but does not address behavioural change, right? So the Service Excellence as a framework is seeing cultural awareness as that basic information about Aboriginal people and culture, right? Might be transactional, like might be something you could do online, for example, right? But it's not the kind of training that addresses behavioural change. So that's just something to be aware of, because they've explicitly defined that way. So if you say, oh yeah, all of our people do cultural awareness training and it's done online and it's part of induction, 100% of people have done it, then we might be asking you, yes, but what sort of learning and development occurs to address behavioural change? Okay, so the things like attitudes inform behaviours, don't they? And behaviours and attitudes are part of the capability, part of the skill set there. All right, so cultural awareness is one element of people developing their cultural competency or their capability, yeah. But here we go. So competency itself is your ability to be able to put those skills and knowledge, behaviours and attitudes into practice. All right. So you might have you might have skill and you might have knowledge and you might have an attitude and you might have an awareness and all those things there, but your competency is to which level you can apply that. Now this, I have got a very, very good resource for you here. There is a tool called the Cultural Competence Continuum. The Cultural Competence Continuum, and it describes 6 stages of development of cultural competence. It can be seen through the individual lens, so me as a person developing my cultural competence, or an organisation and its systems. Okay, so I'll show you that handout when I go and take you to the resources. If you've seen it before, you can see a bit of that table there. It's really helpful, really helpful. So a set of congruent behaviours, attitudes and policies that come together in a system, enabling that system to work effectively across and within cultures. Right, so that's quite a dynamic expression, isn't it, of what cultural competency might look like. To achieve cultural competency, a system needs to recognise and promote diversity, be conscious of the dynamics and cross-cultural interactions, and adapt and reflect into service delivery. All right, so that's the service excellence definition for how they're seeing cultural competency, which guides us as assessors. All right, so capability would be the skills and all that you need there to be able to do it, and competency would be the level to which you're able to actually implement that, to demonstrate that. Yeah. And this is the last one, I think, cultural safety. This is always one that gets me. I don't know about you. But it defines consumers feeling safe when power relations, individuals' rights and cultural differences are respectfully honoured in service provision. Freudian slip there, service division, no, provision. So if a person is feeling culturally safe, it might be that they're feeling that they can authentically express all aspects of their culture. That might be language and dress and ceremony and relationships and, all those sorts of things that go into defining a culture can be safely expressed in their interactions with your staff, their access to your services, their, the way that they're supported to manage risk, or, communication, all those things there. So culture is taken into account in the way the service is provided, to enable, I suppose, culture to be at the heart of it. So I'd love to hear from organisations that are working predominantly with, let's say, with cultural diversity or with Aboriginal groups, about whether that's how you see cultural safety. Because if you don't, you might have some tension with the way that this standard is assessed. We're sort of reading that well, do you think? What about Felicity? What about John? You work with lots of Aboriginal people, don't you? Not in your role specifically, but your organisation does, don't they? Happy for anyone to make any comments about this, because I'm really just helping to interpret what the accrediting body, all right, they're the people that are making decisions about our assessment of you. Okay, thanks for putting that in there, John. That's awesome. Well, Kay, I want to answer your question there. The cultural inclusion standard doesn't address other cultures. It does in the first indicator. Let's have a look at those indicators again. But then the definitions, as I am reading them, go squarely towards working effectively with Aboriginal groups. So you can see there, the first indicator says embracing all forms of diversity. And then the next one talks about a system in place for your staff and volunteers to become culturally capable. I would say if you're including all cultures in that training, you want to make sure that there's an element in there about Aboriginal cultural awareness and Aboriginal cultural competency is supported through that training. Safe and inclusive environment across the organisation and its services. That would be for everyone. But again, making sure that you are specifically addressing access for Aboriginal people and measuring your performance regarding support for and promotion of diversity. If you are measuring how well you're doing with different groups, make sure that Aboriginal groups are included in that. All right, so to answer Kay's question, yes, I think include all forms of diversity and all cultural groups, but make sure that you're addressing it specifically for Aboriginal people, because I'm reading that there's a bit of a focus through this standard for that group. Okay. Good stuff. And we're just about to have a look at the workbook now. So if you've got your evidence guide handy, you can have a look along with me at the guidance that we've been given about the things you might show us as evidence that these 4 indicators are in place. I will share my screen with you. I think I've got it open. Am I? No, not yet. 1 second. I've got to get mine open too. And many of you are at different phases of your preparation for your assessment. There's some fabulous faces missing this month because they've had their assessments. Oh, yeah. So in this last month, we have assessed Lillian's, we have assessed Youth Off the Streets, we have assessed Port Stephens Family and Neighbourhood Services. Is that all, Lisa? We have been busy, haven't we? Oh, and Gurugam as well in Grafton.
Is that all?
Of the month. Yeah, I don't like to leave people out. Okay, let's get this workbook open. And I might just treat you and show you something that I was presented with as evidence while I was doing the Gurugam assessment. They are a large Aboriginal service across Kempsey and Grafton. They run an Aboriginal legal service and a great big community hub in Grafton. And I'll just open this document up and then I'll show you. We're going to have a look at the version 8 evidence guide for the certificate level. And
if Clubhouse we use in version 6, there's not much difference in that. Right?
No, there is a slight difference. We've talked about there's one little difference, and that's about the cultural training indicator there. But that's why it's good that we're having a look at version 8 together, because we'll just make sure that you are able to present that evidence.
Yeah.
Not a problem. There. Have a look at this. I know it's going to be round the other way. This is a newspaper. So this is a newspaper that's put out, how often is it put out? I think it might be put out weekly. And it's called the Examiner. So it's the voice of the Clarence Valley, right, in print. Not many of those left around the place, is there? And Gurugam as a service, every time this is published, they get a page. They have a Gurugam page in here, which is really great, isn't it? But during Reconciliation Week every year, so there's the page that they generally would get. It's a full page spread there. But during Reconciliation Week every year, they get the whole paper. So the whole paper is about all the things that the Aboriginal community are doing around the Clarence Valley. And it's an exciting read. And it made me think, oh, gee, wouldn't it be awesome for that community to have a paper like this of their own all the time? It's absolutely beautiful. And there's only 100 copies of that put out. And I was given one. Isn't that nice? I was given all the usual things too, like the lunches and cake, but I got given one of those. I was very impressed with the level of kind of, media savvy that goes into making that happen, or all the people involved in making that happen. So there you go. It's a good example. Let's have a little look at what you might be able to present as evidence through this standard, embracing all forms of diversity. Oops, did I share that screen properly? Sometimes I don't do it properly. Here we go. You will be telling your own story for your evidence, don't forget. Okay, so whenever we look at the evidence guide, we are just reminding ourselves that it's a guide only. So if you wanted to show your assessor the ways that you're embracing all forms of diversity, then you want to think about that list that we created before, and you might want to just tell us that story. You know, you might want to give us examples through case studies of, you know, how you have invited lots of different perspectives and you're embracing difference in the way that you provide services and the way that you improve your services. So that's your story to tell. And then if you're sort of stumped and you're thinking, oh, we don't know how to tell that story, then you come in here to the evidence guide, because I think you generally know how you'd like to tell that story. But you might tell that story through your strategic plan and the range of different partners you have. You might have a booklet that promotes diversity, you know, with different images and recognition of different groups in your community. You will have policies around equal employment opportunity, diversity and inclusion. You might have a commitment statement around inviting people with a lived experience to be part of developing your service. I don't know why venue hire agreements there, but you can work that one out for yourself. That's what I mean. You see, if you were using this as a checklist, you'd be ringing me up, wouldn't you, Kay? And you'd be saying, we haven't got a venue hire agreement. Do we have to create one? And I'd say, yep. And I'd be joking. All right. So you show us all the different ways that you're embracing diversity in all its forms, remember. So not just cultural diversity, but lots of different diversity. Lots of our clients are talking at the moment about lived experience and how they invite people with a lived experience onto the highest levels of decision making, such as a board. Okay, so that's a really interesting one. And gender equity and things like that are, I know that there's a couple of state and national working parties around, you know, gender equity issues and things like that. So, you know, think a little bit more broadly in your evidence there, but that's going to be your story. A system is in place for staff and volunteers to become culturally capable, all right? Not necessarily competent, but they'll be capable of working effectively with the diversity of clients that they're expected to work with, all right, or the diversity of stakeholders that you're expected to be engaging with in the pursuit of your strategic plan, for example. So whilst we will be looking for every single staff member and volunteer to have had some form of cultural learning. All right, so that is, Lisa, just help me out with the way that you assess it, but I'm looking for the ways that people are supported through learning and development to work effectively with the diversity of clients that they have to work with, or diversity of stakeholders that they have to work with. If
So
you're not working with any Aboriginal, sorry, Lisa, just want to say, if you're not working with any Aboriginal clients, we would not be expecting necessarily that your team had all done Aboriginal cultural awareness. We think that's great, but we'd be more interested in what sort of diversity learning are they doing to be able to develop their skills to work effectively with the groups that they're working with. Thanks, Lisa. What have you got there for us?
Yeah, so it is all dependent on the service in the region. So Port Stephens Family and Neighbourhood Services have a reflective of their community, a really high number of First Nations workers. And so they provide all of that cultural training in-house, and I can't remember what they called one of them, but one of the workers actually was there to provide advice, or not just around cultural competency and capacity, but around cultural safety for their clients that came in. But where I did they have a real mix of clients reflective of their community. So really high called groups. So their cultural competency or cultural capability was a little bit different to what I would expect to see further up north. So yeah, it is highly individualized. And I like to see those things like I got at Port Stevens where they go, oh no, we do that really well. And here's how we can demonstrate it, because this is our cultural competency person, and she's available to give us advice on anything that we might need.
Awesome. That is great. That is great. So there's some different ways that you'll be able to demonstrate that. And we will be asking the staff if they feel that they have the skills to be able to engage effectively with their clients that they're working with. And we'll be asking the clients a similar sort of a question. No? Now, wherever you see that word system, can you see that a system is in place? It's more than a document, all right? And it's more than a couple of steps. It's a system. So we remember, everybody remembers what I've been saying about a good system is that we want to see that this is documented. We want to see that what is written is implemented. We want to see that it is communicated to everyone who needs to know and understand. We want to see that it's delegated to people such as the cultural mentor, or, you know, the person who's leading HR. Someone is delegated the responsibility for making sure that this cultural learning happens, and that it's evaluated. So the effectiveness of this system is evaluated to see, is it having the impact that we intend? Okay, so that's what a system looks like to us. Do you remember that systems are diced? D-I-C-E-D, documented, implemented, communicated, evaluated, and delegated. So that's a way to think about it. If you have got a system, you'll be able to see those 5 things there. The next one. Culturally safe and inclusive environment exists across the organisation and its services. All right, so you determine what cultural safety looks like in the, and I would suggest you have a look at the client journey. Right, so by the client journey, I mean, where does the client come in? How do they get in? What do they experience there? How safe would they feel? How are we encouraging them to talk about culture and express their culture and bring their culture into the planning? And so we have intake, and then we have assessment, and then we have probably some goal setting, and then we have, you know, some support and review of goals, and then we'll sometime down there we'll be referring to other agencies, and then we might be exiting. Okay, so think of that as the client journey, and whereabouts in there are people encouraged? You know, where is culture promoted, acknowledged, respected, and celebrated and included in the plan with the person, or in the way that the service is provided? So, you know, that's one way to think about it. So reconciliation, you might have advisory committees, you might have mentors that support your staff to be able to work effectively. You might have artwork, posters, artifacts, you know, you might have the apology, you might have welcome in different languages and things like that, right? So thinking about the way that culture is promoted and how safe people would feel coming in. Media articles. Oh, hello. Okay. And I would say about that one that we tend to have our goggles on for that from the time we get out of the car. All right. So we're looking for, you know, if I were a person from a diversity group, or if I were a person from a minority group, or if I were an Aboriginal person, how would I experience this welcome? You know, how would I experience this, how long I had to wait, or who I have to talk to, or how many times I have to tell my story, you know, those sorts of things. So we're having a look at those sorts of things as we kind of come through. We have those kind of goggles on. Some organisations will have a cultural safety framework, you know, so that they express how it all fits together. Yeah. The organisation measures its performance regarding support for and promotion of diversity, inclusion, cultural safety and capability. So you are having a look at how you're going. Okay. So you might not have targets, but you may have some goals that you've put down in a workforce plan, for example, about increasing the numbers of Aboriginal people on your team. All right, so we want to have some ways of you regularly, and we want to see that you're regularly having a look at your progress there and adjusting the plan to achieve those, or that you're aware that you're exceeding some targets, or, you know, that you have an awareness and that there is some control over the activities in terms of where you're heading. What is your aspiration? You know, what is your strategic goal around this, or your operational goal around this? Alrighty. So that it's more than ad hoc. You know, some organisations end up with diversity because that's just how it's happened, and other organisations are very planned and targeted in the way that they develop strategies to sort of, you know, to make it happen, to improve it, or, you know, they have a different level of awareness of it. And generally those are the organisations that are more successful with getting where they'd like to go, you know, with their diversity targets or their diversity goals. Yeah. There we go. You might do things like measure, if you've set some partnership goals in your plan, to engage more effectively with Aboriginal services, to create better referral pathways, that you could say to us, look, we said we were going to do that with them, and we've actually done it with them so far, and we've got them on the agenda to do next 6 months. So it's that kind of thing as well. Alrighty. But a lot of organisations think, oh, you know, that means just counting the number of different coloured faces that we have around the place. And I'll say, well, that's not really enough. And you'd be surprised the sorts of comments that come out of that discussion. It is a source of great humour and delight when I hear some people say, oh, you think we've got some of those? Yeah, we've got one of those. Yeah, we've got one of those. And, you know, this sort of stuff, sort of proudly saying, yeah, we've got 2 of those. So, and then I speak to the one of those and I say, how's it for you? Oh my God, I go, oh, it's all. So anyway, that's that. That is that. That's what it sort of looks like, right? But at a minimum, we'd love you to be able to tell your story about what diversity means for you and how you are working to embrace it all. We'd love you to be able to tell us that all of your staff have got access and have undertaken some form of cultural learning that aligns with the work that they're doing. We want you to be able to be measuring that. And what was the third one? Anyway, we go back and have a look at that. But we always love hearing those stories, and it is a standard that we are really passionate about ourselves. It is one of Highwire's values, is diversity. So that's, and we're trying to learn as much as we can in that space. Now you want all your presents, don't you? You want all of your resources. Oh, I'm very excited to be telling you what I've got. I have got, now, did I want to open any of those? Now, you know what happens with the resources? Just in case you don't know what happens with the resources, let's hand it over to Lisa and she can tell you how you be able to access all these resources.
Yeah, so if you haven't been on the website, there is a drop down on the top right that has Highwire client login. So I will have these up. Oh, there you go. And yeah, there's the password. It's the passwire.
Watch out, here comes the red boot.
Highwire ACEs. And so Marie will generally send me those tonight, and I will try and get them up tomorrow. I'll send out a little email to everyone saying they're up, run, don't walk, go and get them. But you can get all of the resources there from all of the Highwire sessions as well, since we started early in the year.
Thank you, mate.
No worries.
Now, what I've put in there, I'm putting in there 3, possibly 4, 3 or 4 different diversity and inclusion audit tools. A couple of them I have used. So I have used the NADA, that's the National Aboriginal Drug and Alcohol Peak. I've used the Aboriginal Inclusion Audit Tool from NADA. It's really detailed, that one, really detailed. And it comes with a toolkit, which has the actual tool, which you go through and you give yourself, you do an internal audit here. What I was invited to do was to come and do an audit for the organisation. So they invited an external pair of eyes to come in and do it. So it's got quite a lot of indicators. So it's very detailed, but it would be great one to do if you're interested in improving Aboriginal inclusion. The next one I've got for you is one from South Australia, which is a little bit easier to use. And I also found, this will take you back down memory lane, the community housing program. And in fact, the Aboriginal community housing program were funded to put together a set of cultural inclusion standards back in 2016. And I thought this was an amazing tool. Let me just open it up for you. If anybody's used it, I just think, why hasn't it been updated, and why aren't we all using it, you know, to assess ourselves? Why isn't it a product in itself? You know, it's just so good, and it's specifically for housing. So I put that one in there. Even though it's a bit outdated, I think you'll be able to play with it and update it. So I want to just give you a quick squiz of that one. Yeah, and they actually they're calling them standards. So it's written up like a set of standards. And I'll make it a bit bigger so you can see it properly. And I can share that with you. Now, this is the cover, if you can remember this. So it is a set of cultural competency standards. It is a self-assessment tool. And look, it's got lovely language in it. I want to take you to the bottom and show you the actual tools. So you start here. So the first standard, I think there are 7 or 8 standards. The first one is about rights. Oh, guys, stop it. Stop it. Anyway, I'll just start here. So it looks like this. It has a range of questions as a conversation starter. And so you could do this with your team, just the same way you're doing the service excellence, if you like. And so you talk about the question and you start to develop evidence. So there's examples of good and leading practice on the right-hand side there as an evidence guide. And then you go and select which level of cultural competence you believe you would be at. So low, medium, high, or leading practice. So you can identify where you are at with some of those indicators. And then there's an action planning template here so that you can start to list the sorts of things that you might like to work on. So I thought that was really lovely. I think there are about 8 standards in that framework. And then I went overseas. I thought, why not go and have a look at what they're using over somewhere else? So I found one from the UK from a community service organisation, a not-for-profit called Youth Music UK. So they're a charity that makes it possible for young people to engage with music, no matter their background. So they're a lot about diversity, and they have a fabulous tool. I'll open this one up for you because I was quite impressed with this, because it auto summarises and it gives you graphs and things like that, which is kind of cool. Now, this is the one, the self-assessment tool, and it also comes with an action plan. So let me just share this one with you. I think you'll like this one if you're a bit of a sort of, make it easy with technology kind of person. So you go through, so it has, what's it got? 3, let's say, elements of diversity and inclusion. It's got embedding it, your policies and procedures, and your programming. And you could change all of this because it's available in Excel and in Word. So look, they've got the little cover here. They've got a bit of an introduction as to what this is all about. And then this plots your scores. So as you start to fill in, well, let's give ourselves 2 for everything, just because we're having a little look. And then it automatically populates your scores here. So, and then it's got some definitions and context there. So if you wanted to create something in your organisation, this could be a good one, really easy one to adapt. Okay, so I've got some diversity inclusion tools for you. I've got an individual behaviours self-assessment. So if you're a leader and you're thinking about the kinds of behaviours that would be, you know, those of a role model around diversity and inclusion, I've got a self-assessment in there for an individual. I've got a, this is the cultural competence continuum that I was talking to you about. This is a well-researched framework for measuring cultural competence across an individual or an organisation. And I see this one cited quite a lot. I'll share this one with you. Yeah. And those of you that like to see theoretical underpinnings of cultural competence would enjoy to read this, right? So it's got, here it breaks down the characteristics of each of those levels of cultural competence. So you can start to see yourself in there, but you can also start to plot your learning journey towards cultural proficiency, right? So you can tell that that's written, you know, by some academics, but still I think it's accessible. You know, the language is accessible. Don't talk like that about academics, Marie. That's terrible. Okay. And I've got a terminology document in there for respectfully communicating with First Nations people, which has been put out by New South Wales Health, which I've been using with my fellas from Safe Work, with my girls and gals, my guys and girls, I should say, not my fellas, my lovely team of people that I've been leading in the diversity training there. So we've been using that one put out by New South Wales Health. So I think you'll like that one. It's a 2020 document, so nice and recent. That's about it from me. Lisa, is that about it from you?
I don't have a whole lot. Oh, actually, sorry, I do have one thing which is not related to this, but just having done a couple of assessments where I've seen the same thing come up as evidence, where templates have been loaded in for things like minutes and agendas and things like that, rather than actual evidence of minutes, agendas, job descriptions and things like that. So that's just a tip, because if it's me and Marie as well, I will come back and ask for actual evidence of that, not just that you've got a template to do those. So if you think that, oh, I might just upload this template, probably best to save yourself a little bit of time and just grab thing.
So with that, what do you do with the information on it? Could you just redact it, or you want to see everything?
Well, yes. So sorry, Lisa, you can redact it if you would like, but you don't redact too much, because we do need to see the flow of decision making and things like that.
It's something sensitive. So if you've got some board minutes that have some sensitivity around it, just choose a different month.
Okay.
We can accept anything from the last year. That would be nice and current. But yeah, feel free to redact anything that is sensitive. But the sorts of things that we're looking for in something like board minutes are how decisions are ratified, review of policies and procedures, business case for expenditure. So there's those sorts of things we're trying to see there.
Also, that information is getting to the board. So are the board aware of complaints or incidents or things that they need to be aware of, so that those are recorded on there as well?
They'll get a manager's report, then they'll get the minutes of the meeting indicating they've accepted the manager's report information. Yeah.
That's right. So that whole trail. So not a template for the manager's report, but the actual manager's report.
Yeah.
Yep.
The templates get a red boot, is that right?
Go, Marie, go.
Pretty much they do get the red boot. Get out of here. That's it.
Yeah.
So we just don't want you wasting your time, because the best evidence is the evidence that really tells us that you're meeting that indicator. And Margie's been doing both. That's fine. If you've got both, I mean, it's helpful for us to see this one and a completed one. But if it's creating a bit of a rod for you back there, just a completed one that you might scan in, or you know, because I know not everything's completed on online, electronically, sorry. Get your words right, Marie. Any other good questions like that? Shall I tell you, while you're thinking of that, I'll tell you, excite you about what the next topic is. We thought that we would do something around consumer engagement and participation, because that hits quite a number of standards and indicators. And there's a lot of good contemporary sort of tools around, such as, you know, consumer engagement audit tools and things like that, that I spend all of my free time looking up, because that's the kind of quality nut that I am. So that's what I'm happy to bring to you. If you've got any that you're using, like surveys or ways to get people's ideas on you know, decision making and planning in your organisation, bring that to the next meeting. That'll be awesome. Now, have you got what you came for?
Yeah. Thanks, Marie. I really appreciated that today.
Good. That's really good. Please get excited about those resources there.
Yeah, I am indeed. Totally. I'm really looking forward to it.
Around. You might disregard some of them, you know, but
No,
just there might be something in there. Great to have you here, everyone.
See you as usual.
Taking your mind off the troubles of the country for at least an hour. So thanks for being part of it.
Thanks very much. Appreciate
Stay
it.
well and keep talking to us about how we can keep all your service excellence stuff going and flowing, because we're very interested in that.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Lisa.
Sorry.
Remember, love it when everybody waves. Great.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Take
See
care.
you soon.